Maya had been teaching piano to kids for 5 years now, and if there was one thing she'd learned, it was this. Most people were terrified of performing in front of others, especially adults. So when she walked into the Riverside Garden venue for her best friend's engagement party and saw that beautiful grand piano sitting in the corner, she knew it would probably stay silent all evening. The party was lovely. String lights hung from the ceiling, soft jazz played through the speakers, and about 60 people mingled around with champagne glasses. Maya's friend Jessica had really outdone herself with the planning. Everything was perfect, from the flower arrangements to the little dessert table that Maya had already visited twice. But Maya kept glancing at that piano. It was a Steinway, probably worth more than her car. The black surface gleamed under the lights, practically begging to be played. She wandered over to it during a quiet moment, running her fingers along the smooth wood. Beautiful, isn't it? Maya turned to find a man standing nearby, holding a glass of water instead of champagne. He looked about her age, maybe early 30s, with dark hair that was slightly messy and glasses that he kept adjusting. He wore a button-down shirt that looked freshly ironed, but somehow he still managed to look uncomfortable. "It really is," Maya said, smiling. "Do you play?" The man shook his head quickly. "Oh no, not me. I'm more of a listener." "That's fair. Most people are." Maya lifted the fallboard and pressed middle C gently. The note rang out clear and perfectly tuned. "This instrument probably costs more than my entire year's salary, and it's just sitting here like decoration." "Are you a musician?" the man asked. "Piano teacher," Maya said, "which basically means I spend my days convincing 8-year-olds that practicing scales isn't torture." He laughed at that. It was a genuine laugh, the kind that reached his eyes. "That sounds like patience I definitely don't have." "What do you do?" "Software engineering. I write code, fix bugs, attend too many meetings." He paused. "I'm Daniel, by the way. Friend of Greg's from college." "Maya, I'm here with the bride-to-be. We've known each other since high school." They talked for a while about nothing in particular. Maya learned that Daniel had moved to the city 2 years ago for work, that he lived alone with a cat named Beethoven, which made her laugh, and that he generally avoided parties like this but couldn't say no to Greg. There was something easy about talking to him. He didn't have that pushy energy some people had at parties, always looking over your shoulder for someone more interesting. He actually listened. The party moved around them. Jessica's aunt was telling a loud story about how she predicted this engagement 2 years ago. Someone dropped a glass near the bar, causing a small commotion. The jazz music continued its gentle soundtrack. "You know what's funny?" Maya said, looking back at the piano. "Everyone's scared of this thing. It's like having a sports car parked in your living room that no one wants to drive." "Maybe they're worried about messing up," Daniel suggested. "Probably, but that's the thing about music. It's not about being perfect. It's about expressing something." Maya turned to him with a mischievous grin. "What about you? Sure you don't want to give it a try?" Daniel's expression shifted slightly. Something flickered across his face, too quick to read. "I'm really not the performing type. Come on. I bet you're better than you think." "Trust me, I'm not." Maya was about to drop it when Jessica's cousin Brandon walked over, already a little tipsy. "Hey, Maya teaches piano. You should play something." "Oh, I don't think—" Maya started. No, come on. We've got this amazing piano just sitting here. Give us a show." Suddenly, several people were gathering around, and Maya felt her cheeks flush. She hated being put on the spot like this, even though she played for audiences all the time. There was something about a party setting that made it feel different. "I'll make you a deal," she said, looking at Daniel with a playful smile. She was trying to deflect the attention, but also something about his earlier reaction made her curious. "If you can play something that actually moves me, I'll give you my hand." The small crowd laughed. Someone whistled. Maya felt silly the moment she said it, but she was committed now. Daniel looked at her for a long moment. His expression was unreadable. Then, instead of laughing it off like she expected, he said something that surprised her. "All right. Wait, seriously?" Maya blinked. "But give me 1 week to prepare." The crowd chuckled, thinking he was playing along with the joke. But Maya noticed that Daniel wasn't smiling. His eyes held something serious, almost intense, that made her heartbeat quicken slightly. "You don't have to," she started. 1 week, he repeated. "Jessica and Greg are having that follow-up dinner next Saturday, right?" "I'll play then." Brandon clapped Daniel on the shoulder. "Oh man, this is going to be good. Maya's a professional, dude. You sure you want to take that challenge?" "I'm sure." Daniel said quietly. The crowd dispersed after a few more jokes and comments, moving back to their conversations. Maya stood there, suddenly feeling like she'd stepped into something she didn't quite understand. It was supposed to be a light-hearted joke, a way to deflect attention, but the way Daniel had responded with that quiet intensity made it feel like something else entirely. "You really don't have to do this," Maya said when they were alone again. "I was just kidding around." Daniel adjusted his glasses, a habit she was starting to notice he did when he was thinking. "I know, but maybe it's time I tried something I've been avoiding." "You've played before?" "A long time ago." He didn't elaborate, and something in his tone suggested she shouldn't push. "What kind of music moves you, Maya?" The question caught her off guard. "What do you mean?" "You said if I play something that moves you." "What does that mean?" "What should I play?" Maya thought about it. "I don't know. Something real, I guess. Something that comes from somewhere genuine, not just technical skill. Does that make sense?" It does. They exchanged phone numbers before the party ended. Maya told herself it was just so he could let her know if he was backing out of the challenge, but part of her knew she was just curious about him. There was something about Daniel that didn't quite fit the usual patterns. He was quiet but not shy, reserved but not cold, and the way he'd accepted her challenge with such seriousness made her wonder what story was hiding behind those eyes. As Maya drove home that night, she replayed the conversation in her head. She thought about his pause when she'd first asked if he played, the flicker of something across his face, the way he'd said "a long time ago" like there was a weight to those words. She picked up her phone at a red light and found his number. Then she put it down. What would she even say? She didn't want to pressure him. It was just a silly joke at a party. But somehow Maya had the feeling that it had become something more than that, and she had 7 days to figure out what. The first text came on Monday morning while Maya was between students. Her phone buzzed during the 15-minute break and she saw Daniel's name on the screen. "Question for you. What's the piece of music that makes you cry every time you hear it?" Maya stared at the message for a moment. It was such a specific, intimate question. Not, "How's your day?" or "What's up?" Straight to something that mattered. She thought about it while her next student, a 10-year-old named Connor, struggled through his scales. What piece really got to her? There were so many. Finally, during lunch, she replied, "Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. It's like he captured every quiet late-night thought you've ever had and put it into music." "You?" His response came an hour later. "I remember that one. My mom used to play it." Maya noticed he said "used to," and something about those two words felt heavy. She wanted to ask more, but it felt too soon. They barely knew each other. Instead, she wrote back, "She had good taste." That's how it started. Over the next few days, they texted back and forth. Not constantly, but regularly enough that Maya found herself checking her phone more than usual. Daniel asked her questions that no one ever really asked. What made her choose piano over other instruments? What was the difference between teaching music and performing it? Did she ever get tired of hearing the same beginner pieces over and over? Honestly? Yes, she texted him on Tuesday night. "If I hear Hot Cross Buns one more time, I might lose it." But then a kid finally gets it right after weeks of practice and their face just lights up. "That makes it worth it." "That's a good reason to do anything," he replied, making someone else light up. Wednesday afternoon, Maya was having coffee with her friend Priya, who also knew Greg from their college days. Maya mentioned the challenge almost casually, trying to sound like it was no big deal. "Oh, Daniel," Priya said, stirring sugar into her latte. "Yeah, Greg told me about that. Bold move on his part." "What do you mean?" "Well, I heard he hasn't touched a piano in years." "Like over a decade." Maya's stomach dropped. "Wait, what?" "But he accepted the challenge. I know, right?" "Greg said Daniel used to play when they were younger, but he stopped completely, wouldn't even talk about it." Priya took a sip of her coffee. "I think something happened with his family. His mom, maybe. Greg mentioned it once but didn't go into details." Maya spent the rest of that coffee meeting distracted. Her mind kept going back to Daniel's text. "My mom used to play it." Used to. Past tense. And now she'd made this stupid joke that somehow pushed him to do something he'd been avoiding for years. She texted him that evening. "Hey, so I heard from a friend that you haven't played in a while." "You really don't have to do this." "I was just joking around." The response took longer than usual. Almost an hour. When it came, it was just one line. "I know I don't have to, but I want to." Maya typed and deleted several responses. Finally, she just sent why. Another long pause. Then, some things are worth facing your fears for. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about what Priya had said. What if her careless challenge had opened up some old wound? What if she'd pushed him into something painful? She barely knew this guy, and here she was, potentially causing him stress over a party joke. Thursday brought more questions from Daniel, but now they felt different to Maya. She answered them, but with growing concern. "What's your earliest memory of piano?" he asked. "My grandmother teaching me. I was 5. I remember her hands guiding mine on the keys." "What about you?" "Similar. Learning from my mom." She was patient. More patient than I deserved. There it was again. Was. Past tense. Maya wanted to ask directly, but something stopped her. If he wanted to tell her, he would. Friday evening, Maya was practicing at home when her phone rang. Actually rang, not texted. She saw Daniel's name and felt her heart rate pick up slightly. "Hey," she answered. "Hi. Sorry to call. Is this a bad time?" "No, it's fine." "What's up?" There was a pause. "I just wanted to ask you something. When you said music should come from somewhere genuine, what did you mean exactly?" Maya sat down on her piano bench. "I guess I meant that technique is important, but it's not everything. The pieces that really move people, they're the ones where you can feel the person playing, not just hear the notes. Does that make sense?" "It does. That's what I thought you meant." Another pause. "Maya, can I tell you something?" "Of course. I haven't played piano since I was 17. That's 11 years. Maya's throat tightened. "What happened?" "My mom died. Cancer. She was a concert pianist. Really talented. She taught me from the time I could reach the keys." His voice was steady, but Maya could hear the effort it took. "After she passed, I couldn't play anymore. Every note reminded me of her. Every song we'd practiced together. It hurt too much. Daniel, I'm so sorry. And I'm sorry about the challenge. I never meant to. Don't apologize. You didn't know." "And honestly, maybe it's time." "Time for what?" "To remember her through the music instead of avoiding it. I've spent 11 years running from pianos, from concerts, from anything that reminded me of her. But that means I've also been running from all the good memories. The Sunday mornings when she'd make pancakes and we'd play duets. The way she'd laugh when I'd mess up and make it sound intentional. The proud look on her face when I finally got a difficult passage right." Maya felt tears in her eyes. She was sitting in her apartment, talking to someone she'd met less than a week ago, and feeling more connected to him than people she'd known for years. "She'd want you to play," Maya said softly. "I think so too. That's why I'm doing this. Not just because of your challenge, though that was the push I needed, but because somewhere in the past week, talking to you about music, I remembered why I loved it in the first place." They talked for another hour. Daniel told her about his mom, about the pieces she loved, about how she'd always played Chopin when she needed to think. Maya shared her own stories about her grandmother, about the students who reminded her why music mattered. When they finally hung up, Maya sat at her piano and played the nocturne. The one she'd told him made her cry, and this time she thought about a 17-year-old boy losing his mother and a 30-year-old man finally ready to play again. Saturday morning, she texted him. "How's the practice going?" "Rough. My fingers remember more than I expected, but it's like speaking a language you haven't used in years. The words are there, but getting them out takes effort. Want some help?" "I mean, I'm a teacher. It's literally what I do. I appreciate it, but I think I need to do this part alone. It's not really about the notes, you know?" "I get it, but Maya, thank you. For the challenge. For listening. For understanding. You're going to do great," she typed back. She just hoped she was right. In less than 24 hours, Daniel would sit at that piano in front of 50 people and play for the first time in over a decade. And somehow, her silly joke had become the catalyst for something much bigger than either of them had expected. Maya spent the rest of Saturday wondering what tomorrow would bring, and whether she was ready to hear someone pour 11 years of pain and healing into 8 minutes of music. Maya changed her outfit 3 times before the dinner party. She told herself it didn't matter what she wore, that this wasn't about her, but her hands kept shaking as she tried to zip up her dress. She'd barely slept the night before, her mind running through every possible outcome of the evening. What if Daniel froze up? What if the memories were too much? What if her stupid joke ended up humiliating him in front of 50 people? She arrived at the restaurant early. It was a private dining room at an upscale Italian place, with that same grand piano from the engagement party. Jessica had specifically requested it be moved here for the occasion, thinking it would be fun to have the challenge everyone had been talking about all week. "You look nervous," Jessica said, adjusting the flower centerpieces on the tables. "I feel terrible," Maya admitted. "I should never have made that joke. What if he's only doing this because he feels pressured? From what Greg says, Daniel doesn't do anything he doesn't want to do. If he's going through with this, it's his choice." Jessica squeezed Maya's arm. "Besides, Greg told me Daniel's been practicing all week. Like, really practicing." Their neighbor complained about piano music at 2 in the morning. Maya didn't know if that made her feel better or worse. Guests started arriving around 7. The room filled with conversation and laughter. Waiters brought out appetizers. Wine flowed freely, but Maya could barely focus on any of it. She kept watching the door, waiting for Daniel to arrive. He showed up at 7:30 wearing a dark blazer and looking like he might throw up. His face was pale, and even from across the room, Maya could see his hands trembling. He caught her eye and gave a small, nervous smile. Maya made her way through the crowd to him. "Hey," she said softly. "You okay?" "Not even a little bit," he admitted. "I almost turned around 3 times on the way here. You can still back out, seriously, no one will care." Daniel looked at the piano, then back at her. "I'll care. I need to do this for your mom, for her, for me, for—" He trailed off, but the way he looked at her made Maya's heart skip, just for a lot of reasons. Greg clinked his glass around 8 o'clock, getting everyone's attention. "All right, everyone. So last week at our engagement party, Maya here made a challenge. If someone could play something on the piano that moved her, she'd give them her hand." Laughter rippled through the room. "Well, my buddy Daniel took her up on it, so let's give him the floor." Applause and a few whistles. Someone shouted, "No pressure," which made everyone laugh more. Maya wanted to sink into the floor. This suddenly felt like a terrible idea. All these people, all this attention, and Daniel hadn't played in 11 years. Daniel stood and walked to the piano. Each step looked like it took effort. When he sat on the bench, his whole body was tense. Maya watched him stare at the keys for what felt like forever. The room gradually fell silent. People shifted in their seats. Someone coughed. Daniel adjusted the bench height, flexed his fingers, placed his hands over the keys, then pulled them back, closed his eyes and took a deep breath. "You've got this," Maya whispered, though she knew he couldn't hear her from across the room. When Daniel's hands finally came down on the keys, the first few notes were shaky. Maya recognized it immediately. Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. The piece she'd told him made her cry. The piece his mother used to play. The opening was hesitant, almost fragile, like Daniel was testing whether he could actually do this. But then something shifted. About 30 seconds in, his shoulders relaxed slightly. His fingers began to move with more confidence, and the music started to transform from notes on a page into something alive. Maya had heard this piece hundreds of times. She'd played it herself countless times, but she'd never heard it like this. Daniel played like someone who was pouring out everything they'd kept locked away for 11 years. Every note carried weight. The gentle passages felt like whispered conversations with someone no longer there. The more dramatic moments surged with a grief that had finally found its voice. His hands moved across the keys with a fluidity that spoke of years of early training, but it was the emotion that made it extraordinary. Maya felt the first tear slide down her cheek around the 2-minute mark. She wasn't alone. Looking around the room, she saw Jessica had her hand over her mouth. Greg's eyes were glistening. Even Brandon, who'd been joking about this all week, sat completely still, transfixed. The middle section of the nocturne built with intensity. Daniel's whole body moved with the music now, leaning into the crescendos, pulling back for the softer phrases. His eyes were closed, and Maya wondered if he was back in some living room with his mother, playing this together on a Sunday morning. The piece began its descent toward the ending. The notes became softer, more contemplative, like someone saying goodbye but not with sadness anymore, with acceptance, with gratitude for what had been, with peace about what was lost. When Daniel played the final phrase, the notes seemed to hang in the air. The last chord faded slowly, dissolving into silence. For several long seconds, no one moved. No one breathed. The entire room was suspended in that moment between the music ending and reality returning. Then someone started clapping. And someone else. And suddenly the entire room erupted. People stood up. The applause was thunderous. Someone whistled. Jessica was openly crying now, but Maya only watched Daniel. He sat at the piano, his hands still resting on the keys, his head bowed. His shoulders were shaking slightly. When he finally looked up and found Maya in the crowd, she saw his face was wet with tears. But he was smiling. Maya couldn't help it. She started moving toward him without thinking. The crowd parted as she crossed the room. When she reached the piano, Daniel stood up. That was, she started, but her voice broke. That was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. It was for you, he said quietly, just loud enough for her to hear over the continuing applause. And for her, but mostly for you. Maya didn't plan what happened next. She just stepped forward and hugged him. Daniel wrapped his arms around her and she could feel him shaking, releasing 11 years of tension and grief and fear all at once. Thank you, he whispered into her hair. Thank you for pushing me to do this. I didn't do anything, Maya said, pulling back to look at him. That was all you. You did more than you know. The applause finally started to die down. People wanted to come talk to Daniel, to congratulate him, to ask questions. But Greg, reading the moment perfectly, intercepted them and suggested everyone sit down for the main course. He gave Daniel and Maya space, herding the crowd back to their tables. Maya and Daniel stood by the piano, not quite ready to rejoin the party yet. So, Daniel said, wiping his eyes and laughing a little, I played something that moved you. Does that mean I get your hand? Maya looked at him. At this man who'd faced his deepest fear in front of 50 strangers, who'd honored his mother's memory with the most honest performance she'd ever witnessed, who'd somehow in just 1 week become someone she couldn't stop thinking about. I think we need to talk about that, she said, smiling through her tears. Maybe somewhere quieter? I'd like that. They slipped out to the restaurant's patio, leaving the party behind. And as they sat under the string lights, talking and laughing and wiping away occasional tears, Maya realized that her careless joke had turned into something neither of them expected. Something that felt like it might be the beginning of something real. The patio was quieter, with only the distant sound of city traffic and muffled conversation from inside. String lights cast a warm glow over the small space. Maya and Daniel sat at a wrought iron table, both still processing what had just happened. Can I ask you something? Maya said after a moment of comfortable silence. Anything. When did you decide you were actually going to do it? Like really commit to playing? Daniel smiled, looking down at his hands. They'd finally stopped shaking. Honestly? About 5 minutes after you made the challenge. I went home that night and just stood in my apartment staring at the wall. And I realized I'd been standing still for 11 years. What do you mean? After my mom died, I kinda just stopped living fully. I went to college, got my degree, got a job, moved to a new city. But I was going through the motions. I avoided anything that made me feel too much. Especially music. He looked up at Maya. Then you made that joke and something clicked. Maybe it was the way you talked about music earlier that night. Or maybe I was just ready. But I knew I had to try. Maya felt a lump in her throat. I'm glad you did. But I still feel terrible that my stupid joke. Stop, Daniel said gently. It wasn't stupid. It was exactly what I needed. Sometimes we need someone outside our own head to push us toward the things we're avoiding. They sat quietly for a moment. Inside, Maya could hear the party continuing, but out here, it felt like they were in their own world. What was she like? Maya asked. Your mom? Daniel's face softened. She was amazing, really patient, which you need to be when you're teaching a hyper 6-year-old to sit still at a piano. She had this way of making practice feel like play. We'd make up stories about the pieces. Like this scale was a mouse running upstairs, or that chord progression was a storm rolling in. That's beautiful. She performed at Carnegie Hall once when she was in her 20s. It was her dream. She had this whole career ahead of her, but then she had me and she chose to teach instead. I used to feel guilty about that. Did she ever make you feel like you'd held her back? Never, not once. She said teaching me was better than any concert. I didn't understand that when I was younger. I thought she was just being nice. He paused. But now, after tonight, I kind of get it. Sharing music with someone you care about, that's different than performing for strangers. It means more. Maya reached across the table and squeezed his hand. She'd be so proud of you. What you did in there, that took real courage. I was terrified the whole time. My hands were shaking so bad at the start. I know. But then you found your way into it. And it was perfect. It wasn't perfect. I missed a few notes in the middle section. I didn't notice. No one did. Because it wasn't about perfect notes. It was about what you were saying through the music. Daniel squeezed her hand back. You get it. That's rare, you know. Most people hear music as background noise, but you really listen. They talked until the waiters started clearing plates inside. About music, about loss, about the weird ways life pushes you toward things you need. When they finally went back in, the party was winding down. People came up to Daniel to compliment him, but he handled it gracefully, accepting the praise but not dwelling on it. Jessica pulled Maya aside near the end of the night. So, are you giving him your hand? Maya laughed. Jess, it was just a joke. Was it, though? I saw how you looked at him during that performance. And I definitely saw that hug. We barely know each other. Then get to know him. That man just poured his heart out on a piano for you. Don't overthink it. Maya drove home that night with her mind racing. She kept replaying the performance in her head, remembering the emotion in every phrase. And she kept thinking about their conversation on the patio, the way Daniel had opened up to her, the connection that felt both sudden and completely natural. Her phone buzzed as she was getting ready for bed. Daniel, thank you for tonight. For everything. I know I already said it, but I mean it. You changed something for me. Maya smiled at her phone. You changed something for yourself. I just happened to be there. But I'm glad I was. Can I see you again? Outside of party obligations? I'd like that. They made plans for coffee that Tuesday, which turned into dinner on Thursday, which turned into a Saturday afternoon at a museum. Before Maya fully processed it, 2 weeks had passed and she was seeing Daniel almost every other day. He was different than anyone she'd dated before. Quieter, more thoughtful. He listened more than he talked, but when he did talk, it mattered. And he was genuinely interested in her life. He came to one of her student recitals and sat in the back, watching her interact with the kids and their parents. Afterward, he told her she was a natural teacher, that she made everyone feel comfortable. Even the kid who forgot half his piece looked happy at the end. Daniel said, "That's a gift." They fell into an easy rhythm. Daniel started playing piano again, really playing. He'd video call Maya sometimes from his apartment, playing something new he'd been working on. His cat Beethoven would usually be sitting on top of the piano, completely unimpressed. Maya brought him to her favorite coffee shop. Daniel introduced her to the Indian restaurant near his place that made the best curry she'd ever tasted. They walked through parks, went to bookstores, stayed up too late talking about everything and nothing. One evening in early November, about a month after the performance, they were at Maya's apartment. She'd made pasta, and they were sitting on her couch with glasses of wine listening to music in the background. "I did something today," Daniel said. "What's that?" "I called my aunt. My mom's sister. We haven't talked much since the funeral. I've been avoiding the family, honestly. Too many reminders. How did it go?" "Good, really good, actually. We talked about my mom, about the memories, and instead of it hurting the way it used to, it felt like I was honoring her by remembering." He turned to look at Maya. "I don't think I could have made that call 2 months ago." "What changed?" "You know what changed. You challenged me to face something I'd been running from, and when I sat at that piano and played, it was like a door opened, not just to music but to everything I'd been shutting out." Maya set down her wine glass. "I'm glad. But Daniel, you did the hard part. You're the one who sat down and played. You're the one who's been practicing every day. You're the one who called your aunt. I just made a dumb joke at a party. It wasn't dumb, and you've been here every step. Do you know how much that means? Having someone who understands, who doesn't think it's weird that I get emotional about a nocturne, or that I talk to my mom's picture sometimes, that's not weird. Most people would think it is. Most people haven't lost someone like that." Daniel reached for her hand. "Maya, I need to tell you something. And maybe it's too soon. Maybe I'm rushing this, but I can't keep it in anymore." Maya's heart started beating faster. "Okay, I'm falling for you. Actually, I think I started falling for you that first night when you talked about music like it mattered. Like it was more than just entertainment. And every day since then it's gotten stronger. The way you are with your students, the way you listen, the way you see people, the way you saw me even when I was hiding from myself. Maya felt tears threatening, happy tears this time. Daniel, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know. Whatever happens, whether this is the beginning of something or just a weird moment in both our lives, you changed everything for me. You brought me back to music, to feeling, to living. Maya didn't say anything. Instead, she leaned forward and kissed him. It was soft and sweet and tasted like red wine and possibility. When they pulled apart, she was smiling. I'm falling for you too, she whispered. In case that wasn't clear, Daniel laughed, that genuine laugh she'd come to love. It's clear now. They stayed on that couch for hours, talking and kissing and planning their next date. Outside, the city carried on. But in Maya's small apartment, with soft music playing and two people who'd found each other in the most unexpected way, everything felt exactly right. 6 months had passed since that dinner party performance, and Maya's life had changed in ways she never expected. Daniel had become part of her daily routine, as natural as her morning coffee or her evening practice sessions. They'd fallen into a comfortable rhythm, the kind where you don't need to fill every silence, where just being together is enough. But it was more than just comfortable. It was exciting. Daniel challenged her thinking, made her laugh at unexpected moments, and brought a perspective to music that reminded her why she fell in love with it in the first place. The biggest surprise came when Daniel started volunteering at Maya's music school. It began with him stopping by to pick her up after work one day. One of her students, a shy 8-year-old named Kevin, was struggling with a piece. Daniel had watched for a moment, then quietly asked if he could help. Maya had watched as Daniel sat next to Kevin and said, "You know what this piece reminds me of? A story my mom used to tell me. Want to hear it?" Kevin had nodded, and Daniel spent 15 minutes turning a simple Mozart piece into an adventure story. By the end, Kevin was playing with more confidence than Maya had seen in weeks. Now Daniel came by twice a week, helping students who were stuck or frustrated. The kids loved him. He had this way of making them feel like their struggles were normal, like everyone faced these challenges. Maya would watch him from across the room and feel her heart swell. "You're a natural teacher," she told him one evening as they locked up the school. "I learned from the best," he said, squeezing her hand. "Both my mom and you." They'd fallen into other routines too. Sunday mornings, they'd make breakfast together at Daniel's apartment while he played music. Sometimes classical, sometimes jazz, sometimes songs from movies they'd watched. Beethoven the cat would sit on the windowsill, tail swishing, pretending not to care. Maya had met Daniel's aunt and uncle in December. She'd been nervous knowing how much his family meant to him, but they'd welcomed her warmly. His aunt had pulled her aside at one point and said, "I haven't seen him this happy in years. Thank you for bringing him back to us." Now it was late April, almost exactly 6 months since that performance. Jessica and Greg were getting married in 2 weeks, and the wedding planning had consumed most of Maya's free time. She was helping with centerpieces one Saturday afternoon when her phone rang. "Hey," Daniel said. "What are you doing tonight?" "Probably drowning in tulle and rose petals." "Why?" "Can you meet me at the Riverside Garden? Around 7? Maya paused, glue gun in hand. "That's the venue from the engagement party." "I know. Daniel, what's going on?" "Just trust me, please." There was something in his voice. Not nervousness exactly, but anticipation. Maya agreed, and spent the rest of the afternoon wondering what he was planning. She arrived at 7 to find the venue's side garden open. The same space where the engagement party had been held, but now it was empty, except for that grand piano, and Daniel standing beside it. He was wearing the same blazer from 6 months ago, and there were candles lit around the piano. "What is all this?" Maya asked, walking toward him. "It's been exactly 6 months since I played for you," Daniel said. 6 months since you accidentally changed my life with a joke." Maya laughed. "I still feel bad about that sometimes." "Don't. I want to show you something." "Will you sit?" He gestured to a chair he'd placed near the piano. Maya sat, her heart beating faster now. Daniel sat at the piano bench and turned to face her. "Over these past 6 months, I've been working on something. I haven't told you about it because I wanted it to be a surprise. And also because I wasn't sure I could actually pull it off." "Pull what off?" "I wrote something. A piece of music. I haven't composed anything since high school, but I had to try. Because there are some things that words can't quite capture. Maya felt tears already forming. Daniel. It's called The Challenge That Changed Everything, and it's for you. He turned to the piano and began to play. The opening was soft and tentative, like the beginning of a question. It reminded Maya of that first night of their careful conversation by the piano. Then the melody grew more confident, building into something hopeful and bright. She could hear their coffee dates in those notes, their long walks, their late-night conversations. There was a section in the middle that turned more complex, with two melodies weaving together. Maya realized it represented them, two separate lives finding harmony together. The way Daniel's steady bass line supported her more elaborate melody above it felt like a metaphor for their relationship. Then came a passage that was darker, more uncertain. Maya heard Daniel's grief in those minor chords, his years of running from pain. But it didn't stay dark. Slowly, light crept back in. The melody from the beginning returned, but stronger now, transformed, like someone who'd faced their fears and come out the other side. The piece built to a crescendo that made Maya's breath catch. It was joyful and hopeful and full of love. Then it settled into a final section that was peaceful. Content, like coming home. When Daniel played the last note, Maya was openly crying. He stood up from the bench and came to kneel beside her chair. Maya, 6 months ago you joked about giving me your hand if I could play something that moved you. And I played, but it was borrowed music. Chopin's words, not mine. Today I wanted to play you something that came from me. From us. From what you've meant to me. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. I know it's only been 6 months. I know people might say it's too fast, but I've never been more sure of anything in my life. You brought me back to music, to feeling, to living. You saw me when I was hiding from myself. You've been patient with my grief, understanding with my process, and you've made every single day better just by being in it. He opened the box. Inside was a simple, beautiful ring. Maya, I'm not joking this time. I really do want your hand. Will you marry me? Maya couldn't speak. She nodded, tears streaming down her face, and reached for him. Daniel stood and pulled her into his arms, and she felt him shaking with relief and joy. Yes, she finally managed to say. Yes, of course, yes. He slipped the ring on her finger, and it fit perfectly. They stood there holding each other for a long moment, both crying, both laughing, both completely overwhelmed by the moment. I can't believe you wrote me a song, Maya said, pulling back to look at him. I can't believe you said yes, Daniel replied. Did you really think I'd say no? I hope not, but you never know. Maybe you'd say the song needed work. Maya laughed and kissed him. The song was perfect. You're perfect. This is all perfect. Want to hear the song again? I can teach it to you. Right now? Why not? We have the piano. We have the time. And I've always wanted to play a duet with my fiancé. Maya loved the way that word sounded. Fiancé. They sat at the piano together, Daniel on the left, Maya on the right. He showed her the melody line while he played the accompaniment. They fumbled through it at first, laughing when their hands bumped, starting over when one of them missed a note. But slowly, they found their rhythm. Daniel's steady bass supporting Maya's flowing melody, two parts creating something bigger than either could make alone. Their hands moved across the keys together, sometimes close enough to touch, sometimes dancing around each other, but always in harmony. When they finished, Daniel turned to her. So this is what forever sounds like. I think I could get used to it, Maya said, resting her head on his shoulder. They sat there at the piano as the sun set outside, occasionally playing phrases from Daniel's composition, talking about wedding plans and the future and how strange it was that a silly challenge at a party had led them here. Beethoven would have to get used to having a new person around full time. They'd need to find a bigger apartment with room for Maya's students and Daniel's late-night practice sessions. There were a million details to figure out, but right now, in this moment, with the man she loved beside her and music filling the air, Maya knew one thing for certain. Some jokes weren't jokes at all. Some challenges were actually invitations, and sometimes, the best love stories started with a simple dare and a willingness to face your fears. Daniel reached for her hand, the one now wearing his ring, and squeezed it gently. Ready to play our song again? He asked. Always, Maya said, and their fingers found the keys together, creating a melody that was entirely their own.